All right. I'm going to go to public comment here. Invite the rest of the folks in the room to join the conversation. We are aiming at getting out of here at 7 o'clock. And I want the group at the table to have time to wrap up things at the end, to talk about next steps, and to answer any questions if we need to. So I've got, if we have 3-minute comments, we're going to go for an hour and a half. So I'm going to limit comments to 2 minutes so we can try and get through this in about an hour. And we will start. Do we just have one microphone for comment? Okay, so you can come over here. Please be ready if you're the next person. We're starting with Lisa Landris, followed by David Prentice. Is Lisa Landris here? David Prentice. David will be followed by Madeline Brasher.
My name is David Prentice. I spent the better part of the last 20 years working with the homeless and the addicted. The last 7 years I was chaplain up at Lytton Springs ARC before they closed. Addiction issues are not just a genetic predisposition. They are often driven by issues. I've had guys in my office who were doing dope when they were 6, alcoholics by 13, sticking needles in their arms with mommy at 15 years old, being beat up with 2x4s. It covers the gamut. We heard today also that 30% of the people on the streets have mental illness. And in California, one of the greatest things that we were challenged with is the severe lack of abilities of the state to be able to help us in these areas because they're underfunded. Now, the reality of the situation simply becomes this. We can give these guys a roof over their head, but their issues are going to go in the room with them. And so if we do not begin to come up with a strategy with how we address their issues, then we're not really solving the problem. What I've discovered in my time is that faith-based communities are really good at helping in these areas. And perhaps what we ought to be trying to do is to figure out ways to open doors for them to be of more service. Just because somebody does not have a college degree does not mean that they are not qualified to help the hurting. If that was the case, then we would not have sponsors in Alcoholics Anonymous. So I want to encourage you to get this on the docket also. Try to figure out how we can make faith-based communities more inclusive. They want to help. By their faith, it's dictated that we help the hurting, the lost, the addicted, the homeless. But we need to be allowed to help. And the more you can figure out, well, how can we bring you in, the more you're going to get from us. You have over 80 churches in Santa Rosa. Average church is 100. That's 8,000 people in this community that want to help. Give them a chance to help.
Thank you. Daisy, was that your? Okay, so the tone from the iPhone will let you know when your time's up. Madeline Brasher.
Not just simply that they don't have a place to stay. I think it's addiction. I am a Santa Rosa native and a business owner on 4th Street, and I'm now dealing, with, I was asked for crystal meth the other day. Never been asked for that in my life, and I'm 33 years old. I also have to deal with my clientele, or young women that don't want to go into my building when these said addicts are sitting outside of my door, begging or catcalling or making advances. So most of the people that I know around my age, we don't even want to frequent downtown because of this homeless population. Or I say homeless in quotes as well, because a lot of these people aren't taking. There's also a parking lot, I believe, by the county building. I have a sheriff client that said is open for them to camp at, but they don't choose to use it. They choose to use the park downtown on Sonoma Avenue that connects to Henley Street. The square as well is, in my opinion, $10 million worth of money we could have put to other services that Santa Rosa needs much more than a square of cement. I mean, the roads are terrible. We have feces everywhere. The same homeless man that asked me for crystal meth, I seen him peeing on a business on Mendocino and 4th on Sunday at 1:30 in the middle of the day. Sunday is a family day. These are the people that I want to see off of the street and to stop harassing me and my clientele. And it mostly is the drug addiction problem that I'm experiencing. So that's what I would like to see being removed from the street and out of our business doorways. Thank you.
Thank you. ISP Brusher, followed by Patricia Hunstock. Mr. or Ms. Brusher here. Patricia Hunstock. She'll be followed by Debbie McKay.
Thank you for this opportunity to talk. I'm Patricia Hunstock, and I live in the Bennett Valley area. But I also look at now I know why I pay high taxes. California is very, very high taxing. And I have friends that are moving out of California to live other places because it's such a high, not the rents, but everything is very high. So I think we have to be very careful about, raising any kind of taxes. But I do agree with the first two speakers completely, what they said. But I really came here to talk about the homeless encampment off of Farmers Lane. Every single day I have to drive there and I see somebody jaywalking. They don't use the sidewalks, they don't have sidewalks. But anyway, I think that you really need to, and I think it's a poor use of our police to go out there every day to clean up and do whatever they do. That is really a poor use of our services to have them do that. That needs to be cleaned up. It's a disgrace. You can see the blue stuff and whatever, and I feel sorry for the Jewish synagogue there. They're right there, above that. So I don't know if my 2 minutes are up, but I really think that those encampments have to be cleaned up and out of there.
Thank you. Debbie McKay.
Yes, I'm Debbie McKay. I'm a lifelong resident of Sonoma County and probably 30 plus years in Santa Rosa. I've been studying this issue as well, and I commend what you're doing. I commend that you're getting together, and I would encourage you to include Petaluma, and I would encourage you to take the best ideas from all of your cities. All of your cities have been working on this, and I want to give you just a couple of examples. Petaluma has worked very hard on a program called Share for Seniors, and this is a way to use existing housing to house more people. And so I would encourage you to really look into what the city of Petaluma is doing, partnering with one of their nonprofits to get people who have a house that's more than they need to share with another person. And they do a very extensive process to match people up. I would encourage you to look at what Petaluma has done on their granny unit fees. I know you're in the process of adopting your own granny unit policies. I don't know how they did it, but they were able to get their fees down to only 25% of the fees they would charge for a normal, regular development. So I think it's really worth looking at that, and if there's a way to make that really affordable, because I know you're dealing with urban growth boundaries and things like that. Wherever you can do infill, you're not going to have to deal with urban growth boundaries. You're not going to have to deal with Endangered Species Act and a lot of the other things that prohibit you from doing housing. And I noticed that the junior college is offering a course for homeowners on how they can do granny units. I think this pertains to the whole county, but it might be worthwhile the city looking at doing a similar kind of workshop periodically, maybe once a quarter, where you would have your city staff walk the residents who want to do these granny units kind of through the process and what's involved so that people can take that step or decide whether that step works for them. I'd also encourage you're going to soon have all the controversy of the Shanate development in your laps. And one of the things that exists up there is a shelter for women and children. And I would encourage you to try to preserve that, if at all possible, rather than that going away, because that's a really important resource.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. Your 2 minutes are
Okay.
well up. Thank you, though. Ronit Rubinoff, followed by George Uberti.
Give me any warning, Chris.
Go ahead, tip that
Tip
up.
that
You
up.
don't have to bend over.
My name is Ronit Rubinoff. I'm the Executive Director for Legal Aid of Sonoma County, and I just want to say I'm proud to say that we are a partner with both the county and the city in providing services that are upstream and actually help prevent this problem from occurring. Legal aid services help families who are at risk of homelessness avoid that by having time and resources to locate alternative housing. We also help people keep their Section 8 benefits, which is another thing we haven't talked about today, but is very helpful in preventing people from ending up on the street. And the county and city are both working on that. And we also help people, we help the county and city preserve the quality of our existing housing stock. And that's another issue we are facing in this county when we're looking at this idea of our depleted housing stock. We do that by making sure that habitability laws are enforced and that housing conditions don't deteriorate further. Just a quick example, we have 2 cases right around in this area where there are serious mold and leakage issues, and the tenants, low-income Hispanic, complained, and the landlord tried to retaliate and evict them, and we were able to stop the eviction, get the repairs made, and make sure that the tenants weren't out of pocket so they could still afford their housing. So these are very real solutions, and we're part of this solution, and we really appreciate the support and ability to work with you all. Thank you.
Thank you. George, and Mr. Uberti will be followed by James Klein.
How are you? I heard you all talk about the point-in-time survey, 2017. Something that's required by Housing and Urban Development. It's required every 2 years, and it's required so you can get Housing and Urban Development funds. I was very curious while I was up here that nobody mentioned the 2015-2016 audit, national audit that was done of the Department of Housing and Urban Development, in which $500 billion was missing. $500 billion. I thought that sounded big. I looked it up, and a lot of sites said it was fake news, but it turns out you can download the audit yourself, and there are $500 billion missing. My thinking is that one person does not steal $500 billion. But that probably a lot of different things were going on, and in fact, I was encouraged when I saw it because I'd been looking through our local HUD numbers, and they didn't look very good. Right now, what I've got is it's the annual financial report for the City of Santa Rosa Housing Authority. And it appears to have an audit at the beginning. If you look at the beginning, it says, oh yeah, look, this is an audit. But it turns out it's not actually an audit. It's a discreetly presented component unit of this. I thought that was lovely how they did that. So we're getting a lot of funds from HUD, and if you get past it, and you get down here, it says, we do not express an opinion or provide any assurance on the information because the limited procedures do not provide us with sufficient evidence to express an opinion or provide any assurance. It also says that the introductory section has not been subjected to the auditing procedures applied in the audit of the basic financial statements, and accordingly, we do not express an opinion or provide any assurance on it. So the part of it that looks really great, we can't say whether or not that's true. And in fact, as you get into the actual financial, management's discussion and analysis of the financial statements, unaudited. So, and by the way, you don't have to be an accountant to look through these accounts. You just have to know how math works. Because, yeah, I understand what numbers are, and this is not right. Before we look at new things to do and working together, maybe we should check and balance a little bit and take a look at some of the audits, some of the things we already have in place that aren't working. Because somebody's stealing that money.
Thank you. James Klein. James Klein will be followed by Steve Bertolo.
Thank you. I'm thankful to the council for being here and the county service staff, especially our police department. I think everybody should give them a big hand. They do more work than anybody else on this problem, and I know they do a lot of calls. I happen to live over on Sebastopol Road at a community behind Food Max. Last year I got with the city council on the problem over there. I don't see Sonoma County Parks here today. They've been a great resource for helping keep the trail cleared. But the one big problem is there's no place for the homeless to go. You know, I move them next door, then the police officer comes and moves them down another house and another house. They don't have anywhere to go. Let's get some land and make a camping area for them, okay? Let's do that. How much money is it going to take to turn a vacant lot into housing area for our homeless? And they're all our permanent, residents. Let's do something for them besides giving them tickets and harassing them. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Mr. Bertelbaum. Steve will be followed by Edward Meese.
Thank you, Mayor Corsi and members. Steve Bertelbaum. I've been co-chair of Friends of the Homeless for about a dozen years, and we've heard providers come and talk to us month after month. I'm really glad to see that we're now talking about housing first, and I'm really glad to see all the county people with all the city people that are working on this issue in one room. As has been pointed out, we're missing some key county people. There needs to be a combination of county and city effort on this if we're going to build $160 million worth of housing for the mentally ill homeless, and then probably 5 times that much housing for the rest of the homeless. So let's look at what we do when we need to have a really strong staff and support for a city county operation. We have the Sonoma County Transportation Authority that takes care of our roads. We have the Waste Management Organization that takes care of our landfill. These are organizations that are probably the result of a JPA, and they're able to hire very well qualified staff that work closely with the staff for all of the cities and the county. And they seem to be able to avoid the problems that we've experienced with people not knowing what the right hand not knowing what the left hand is doing, and dealing with a situation that crosses boundaries. So as we look to a bond act for the county to take care of our housing problem, let's fix the leadership issue by creating something like SCTA or the Waste Management Authority. Thanks.
Thank you. Edward Meese, followed by Terry Mitchell.
Hi, I've heard some encouraging words about authorized camps, which are a good idea, and I am hoping that they will be secure and sanitary. Those are 2 things I wanted to get in about that. And also, I love the idea about working with nonprofits, because nonprofits are about the task at hand, and for-profits are about making a profit, and it's 2 different things. The one thing I would like to say about nonprofits is that you want to make sure that it is not one of those nonprofits that is a nonprofit but pays their executives exorbitant amounts of money. The other thing I wanted to talk about is that money. I never saw a homeless person growing up. There are some people as old as me in here, I think, that also didn't. Big tax cuts in the late 70s and 80s at the federal level and at the state level, and the state level is the only one we can do anything about, Proposition 13. I have been in touch with Mr. Levine and Mr. McGuire about repealing it with 3 exemptions. First, a person's primary residence, and that doesn't mean a castle, it means a primary residence. Second, a small California-based business would be able to exempt 1 property, and that also needs to be defined, what a small California-based business actually is. Oliver's fits, Food Max might, Safeway probably doesn't. And the third thing is anybody who rents their rentals below market rate gets a proportional cut in their taxes. their property taxes. And what I'm hoping I can get both the city council and the county supervisors to do is, now that we have a 2/3 Democratic majority in both houses and a Democratic governor, we might be able to start lobbying together the state government to make this kind of a repeal of Proposition 13 that would bring in a lot more money just in time.
Thank you. Terry Mitchell, followed by Joanna James.
Whoa. First of all, thank you everyone for your hard work on this issue. I know it's not an easy issue. I think a lot of organizations do a great job at helping the homeless people move into transitional housing and then permanent housing. So my question is, if we had houses for all of them, would they use them? Would they live in them? I don't know about that. And how many of the homeless use the services that are offered to them other than the food? Do they seek the mental the health services and the addiction services? I don't know. I don't know how you lead a horse to water. So I think we need to look at how we do that. Most of the people I see on the Bennett Valley encampment, because I drive by it every day, don't appear to be mentally ill. They appear to be camping there. And maybe I'm wrong, but they're taking in furniture, they're taking in, things to make fires, they're taking in propane tanks. So I don't think those are the mentally ill people. So my question would be, is there buy-in for them to obtain services and housing? If we provide them all housing with services, I understand they need them, is there something that they provide or they give back to that community so that they have a buy-in into the process? That would be one of my questions. The second one is looking at existing housing stock. I don't know what's happening with the Sinead, but there's Sinead. There's St. Rose Church, which I think there's one priest that lives in that complex. There's Holy Spirit Church. There's a big complex out there. The county that they're closing down the facility in Sonoma. I mean, can we look at leasing some of those facilities as opposed to trying to build brand new housing stock? Thank you.
Thank you. Joanna James, followed by Prudence Alasha.
Thank you, and thank you for having this meeting. I think it's obvious from all of these services that you're talking about that a great deal of coordination and collaboration is needed here. And I certainly subscribe to the idea that housing first is essential, but I'd like us not to lose sight of some more basic and immediate needs, one of which is access to toilet facilities. I just had the privilege of stepping out for a moment and going to a nice bathroom that wasn't even locked. As an aging female, I'm rapidly becoming an expert in the location of every toilet in Santa Rosa. But I'm appalled to find how many of them are locked. And all I have to do to get in is go ask for a key. Somebody will very gladly give me a key or tell me the code for the keypad. And almost always with this funny look on their face. There's somewhere between a grimace and a smile and a shrug as they say, sorry it's locked, you know, the homeless. And it puts me in mind of my childhood in the South, where there were separate toilets that were labeled for so-called colored. And so we had these, second-rate inferior facilities that were set aside for colored. We don't even manage that here for homeless people.
Prudence Alasha, followed by Adrian Lobby. Is Prudence here? Adrian will be followed by June Michaels. Is Adrian here? Hi. Okay.
Thank you. We lost a homeless person this week, Sandra Talbot Marsden. There's going to be a memorial for her June 7th, Wednesday, June 7th at the living room at 2:30. And there's been some definite, some stuff putting around about it, but she did die of natural causes. And she died outside, which is a shame. It's a shame on all of us, really. I would like to thank all the homeless people who are in the room and the people who are here who work directly with homeless people. Day after day, I see a lot of people, and I really appreciate that you're here. And if you aren't already planning to speak, I hope you will, because I think we hear what's available, and it sounds wonderful, and it sounds like there's so much, but I know that for homeless people, it's very, very hard to get what you need, and there are waiting lists for so much, as Ms. Combs mentioned. The problems are massive. We're not going to fix it overnight. I'm really glad to see you collaborating. I think having some bond measures to build housing is in our sights, and I hope that that continues. We have 40 encampments in the city that have been identified. I think that we should call those temporary housing, and we should thank the homeless people who build them. And we should provide them with porta potties and trash cans and the things they need to make it a decent place to be. And then I think we should really, in the next week or two, find some city land, find some county land where people can go. Because we now have a plan in the city, I've passed out information about this, to make infractions into misdemeanors that will be discriminatory against homeless people. We're gonna put them in jail. And jail is a lot more expensive than any other kind of shelter. We have people saying, you know, clean out Homeless Hill. Well, they're just gonna go to another place. So let's set this up, let's do it right. And let's save safe parking, please.
Thank you. June Michaels. Ms. Michaels will be followed by Mandy Mars.
Hi, I want to say thank you to everyone who's participating. I have a question. I'm old enough to remember the Reagan days and how he closed a lot of outpatient mental services. Does anyone at City Council or would the county remember the services that were provided before Reagan closed them? I don't know. Does that mean no one does?
I'm sorry, Ms. Michaels, we can't do a back and forth here at the public
Oh, I'm
comment
sorry.
time.
I just want to suggest that I don't remember, like someone else mentioned, there were not a lot of homeless before Reagan closed the outpatient mental services. Perhaps we could look at what was established before, what was successful before, because we don't have it since then. Also, I think bathrooms are a dignity. It's a right to have a bathroom. I highly suggest, as was mentioned before, putting bathrooms out. It could be around 4th Street as well. Could have certain ones. They don't have to be porta potties. Empty buildings, we have those that could be transformed versus building new into housing. And regarding the police for the homeless, I think there's better things that you can do besides shuffling them around. Thank you.
Thank you. Mandy Mars. She'll be followed by Leslie Allen. Is Mandy here? Leslie Allen? Leslie here. Oh. Leslie will be followed by Sandy Shotwell.
I don't speak nearly as poignantly as everybody else, and I feel ill-prepared, actually. But I'm here because I met Sandra Shotwell a year and a half ago, leaving my business about 11 o'clock at night on Farmers Lane. It was 30 degrees. It was January. And I looked down the breezeway, and I saw a person lying on their back on the concrete with their legs crossed and their hands on their chest, and that was Sandy. It's not Sand. She goes by Sand. And I just couldn't walk away. I knew I could call the police, and somebody would come and push her along or something. But I did do my best to provide shelter for her for about a year, and I wasn't able to any longer, so that came to an end. So I've had to basically put her back out on the street. But I've tried to maintain a relationship with her. And I guess some of the things I've asked her about, I asked her to come to this meeting today, and I said, what are some of the things that you could use right now? I mean, we obviously can't get everybody into a house right now. some of the things she really struggles with. I mean, at one point I actually said something about, can't you just work at Taco Bell? You like to go to Taco Bell. They were hiring. And she didn't say anything at that time, but just the other day she said, how could I possibly work at Taco Bell? It's so traumatic trying to deal with the public, dealing with employees, dealing with a supervisor. It would be she's so traumatized from being on the street for 4 years. She flew her flag, she flew her sign on a corner out there to get money to buy a cart for her bicycle so she would have some secure place to put what little things she has, a clean set of clothes, some personal hygiene things. And that cart was recently stolen from her bike. And it is difficult for her to make reports to the police. I'm sure they're trying, but some of them are very rude and very unkind. And I'm sorry to say that, but I believe it. I've been treated that way myself. But I know she needs places to access the shower more easily and regularly, where she's not going to be hassled. She was arrested for trespassing at the JC for taking a shower. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. Ms. Shotwell?
Thank you. I'm a native to the Bay Area. I was born in Marin. I've lived in Santa Rosa for 39 years. I'm going on 4 years being homeless. The cell phone has revolutionized homelessness, but it does need to be charged. It takes at least a couple hours to charge a phone, and a charge doesn't last a whole day. So now when you go home, you plug your phone in, charge it. It's charging while you're doing other stuff. I can't do that. I have to guard the phone because the number one difficult thing about being homeless is being ripped off by the homeless people. By far and away, it's so traumatizing that because of that, and because so many homeless people are mentally ill, and I have compassion for the mentally ill, I have compassion for the drug addicted, but such a large percentage of the homeless population is mentally ill that I no longer access the services available to me because it's just too traumatic to go to these breakfasts and dinners. There's always an incident, and the staff is overwhelmed, and they're not really qualified to deal with people that are mentally ill and drug addicted. So now I just don't even bother. Some suggestions, like what I would do to get out of the cold, you can go to, before FedEx, it's no longer 24 hours, but Kinko's FedEx used to be 24 hours, or you could go to the Jack in the Box diner, that's 24 hours, or you could join the 24-hour gym, that's 24 hours, but don't fall asleep. Sleeping is what makes being homeless a crime. It's not a crime to walk the streets at night. You can walk the streets all night long, but don't fall asleep, because that's where the crime is. Why can't you have a place that's like a combination of FedEx with little computer cubicles, like Starbucks with seats to charge your phone, like a 24-hour gym, but you're allowed to nod off without being asked to leave? Stealing a bike is a misdemeanor unless it's worth thousands of dollars. If someone breaks into your garage to steal your $300 bike, then that's breaking and entering. But if you're homeless, they don't have to break and enter. I've had 7 bikes stolen in 3 years, and now just the bike trailer was stolen. And before it was stolen, the bike and trailer was stolen twice, and it was stolen twice in a month, and twice I got it back, but now the bike trailer is stolen. It's gone. Stealing from a homeless person should be a felony. Stealing a bike from a homeless person should be a felony. Being brief isn't my strong suit, so my 2 minutes are probably...
We'll need to wrap up.
Yeah, thanks.
If you can do it.
Have a great.
Thank you for telling us all your story. Victoria Fleming, followed by Susan Chunko. Susan Chunko? Is Susan here? She'll be followed by Michael O'Toole.
First, I wanted to thank Julie for addressing the difficulties one can have in accessing the available services. I work at Remembrance Village, which is more commonly known as Camp Michaela. We have our ups and downs. We also have water, some electricity, porta potties. It makes a huge difference for homeless people to have a safe place where they can access services that other people take for granted. I mean, toilets, water, electricity. We need more interim camps because we all know that housing first is at least a year or 2 in the future. We need something now, and we need sanctioned tent cities. Thank you.
Michael O'Toole, he'll be followed by Mandy P.
Good evening, Michael O'Toole. 107 days from now, Camp Michaela, also known as Remembrance Village, will be in existence for 2 years. We have done amazing things with Michaela. We currently have 7 people who are employed living there. I personally worked with 2 people yesterday to get them connected with mental health services. We do what other people should be doing. And we're not asking for anything for doing that. We do it because it's the human thing to do. What I would ask is, after 2 years of existence, as Susan said, we've had our ups and downs. We need some assistance now. We're not talking about financial assistance. We need minimal sanctioning. We're not asking for 100% sanctioning. What we're asking for is for people to help us make this what it can be. It has been an amazing thing numerous times. It can be amazing again. We have problems, but it's hard. I work. I'm 60 years old. I'm doing everything I can. Susan, she works. She's doing everything she can. You know, these people need this space to get their lives back together. I mean, we have people there that really care. I mean, we have 2 people that work at Grocery Outlet. We have 1 person that works at Hyatt. We have another person that works at another really expensive hotel chain. You know, we have people that are really doing things. They're changing their lives. I'm helping a lady get SSI now. I'm plugging a person into the JC so she can go back to the JC and get an education and do what she wants to do. It's not that easy. You know, it takes a toll on a person. And I do it because I'm compassionate. Susan does it because she's compassionate. Adrienne Lobby does it because she's compassionate. We do this because it's compassionate, not because we're looking at the bottom line dollar we're getting. So please, help us. Engage us. Talk to us, please.
Thank you. Mandy P. Mandy will be followed by Sarah Hilton.
Hey, everybody. My name is Mandy. I also live at Remembrance Village. I'm kind of a new addition to it. Like Mike said, and Susan, we do have running.
Mandy, don't wander too far there from the microphone.
Okay. We do have water, access to water. We do have porta potties. We also have our own security. So as a way to maintain everybody pretty much stays, you know, it's drug and alcohol free. Nobody is allowed to use or be addicted to that. The other thing is that we have our own council, like you all, where we have our set of rules. There's it's chores. There's stuff we're all expected to do something every day and not become a nuisance. The main thing is that it is a safe place where we can leave there to go do whatever we need to do during the daytime, whether it be look for a job, place to stay, anything like that. But we know we can walk away from those gates and we'll come back and everything will be there. That's very hard for a lot of people. I personally have had stuff taken from me. I've been off and on the streets over quite a few years, actually. It's been a challenge. I battled depression, but every day I wake up not really knowing what the day's gonna entail, but it's definitely an adventure. And it's one that I hope that y'all will realize that a lot of us take a lot of things for granted, like electricity, you know, your email, being able to email somebody, being able to pick up the phone and call somebody. You know, you don't know what you've got until it's gone. You know, I used to look at, oh God, I gotta go home now. When you don't have a home, it hits hard.
Thank you, Mandy. Sarah Hilton, followed by Kevin Conway. Is Sarah here? Kevin Conway. You'll be followed by Michelle Behrens.
Thank you, everybody. I'm Kevin Conway. I don't think my remarks represent duplication of effort. I hope not. But back in about 1990, there was a program called the Family Connection, and it was run by what I would call Saint Sister Teresita, who was with the Catholic Charities. But the idea was that community volunteers were placed in groups of about 4 or 5, and these groups then received training sessions at night, about 5 sessions about the goals of the program, and they were taught techniques for supporting a homeless family. Then the exciting thing was that each of these groups was assigned to a homeless family or a homeless person. We learned their history and their background, and then we got to meet them, and each of us took a very personal interest in this family. We did the kinds of things that Michael O'Toole referred to, helping them, the kids with their homework or driving people to medical appointments, helping them fill out forms and job applications, coaching them on being effective in a job interview, that sort of thing. And this was great because a concerned citizen could get involved in a very hands-on way as opposed to just giving money to very busy, overworked and underfunded agencies. I don't know the statistic, but every day a significant number of us baby boomers turn 65, which means that they may be in a position, if they're retiring, to do this kind of service. There might be people in this room who would be interested in doing that kind of service to help out. So the template does exist for this kind of a program to get up and running, and I'd love to see that happen. Thank you.
Could you repeat the name of the program one more time?
It was called the Family Connection. It was done about 1990, 92, somewhere in that area. It was Sister Teresita was the woman, the nun that ran that.
Great, thank you.
Michelle Behrens, she'll be followed by Georgia Berland. Is Michelle here? Georgia Berland. And Georgia will be followed by Leah Marks.
Thank you. I really appreciate your focusing on this subject as hard and long as you have, and doing it collaboratively with other jurisdictions and the public and with homeless people themselves. So thank you for that. And I hope the collaboration will continue to expand and include other cities as well. I think that was a very important suggestion. I want to just remind the council about some programs that are sponsored by much smaller organizations than some of the large public entities and large nonprofits, but that are extremely significant in terms of helping people get out of homelessness and that are having an impact on that. 2 of these, the 2 that I'm involved with, are First Sober Sonoma, and that is one where we're reaching out to people who have been addicted on the streets for many years and moving those people into treatment. And someone earlier asked, do these people really want this kind of help? We were amazed at how many people are just coming to us and saying, please, can we get into your program? Bringing other homeless people, saying, this person's drinking too much, can you help him? We're only limited by the bed space that we have and the funding that we have. The people are really wanting this kind of service and are engaging with us to get it. The second program, and I want to say this program is fully funded through February at least of next year, and will probably be refunded based on avoided costs from the hospitals and other organizations that serve these people. The second program is Homeless Court, which proves to be extremely effective in getting people out of homelessness. We've resolved 188 cases in the first 4 sessions of that court, and helped 64 people resolve infractions, fines they've been carrying for things like illegal camping or a lost driver's license that has kept them from work and kept them from housing, and now they're able to access housing, and many of them are in fact now housed. So that program is still seeking funding for next year. It's a tiny amount of money we're talking about, between $25,000 and $30,000, to serve many, many people and really end their homelessness. So we're hoping that we can gather the support that we need to keep that going. But we thank you for all the work that all of you are doing to end homelessness. Thanks.
Thank you, Georgia. Leah Marks. And Ms. Marks will be followed by Nicolette LaFranchi.
Excuse me. I'm taller than this, sorry. Good evening. Thank you for taking all your time. So I'm here today to speak on behalf of all the parents and children with regard to some of the proposed tent encampments. Typically these are on church-owned property. I've taken the time to read many of the reports, both here that have been presented by like official reports for similar programs that were run here in California or other states. And one thing was resoundingly true for all of them, and that was that none of the encampments were located, regardless of the results, next to a school. And the proposed encampment on the empty lot on the corner of Giffen and Stony Point Road is literally across the street from a K-6 elementary school. And they're there for school and aftercare programs. And it just is a grave concern of mine that that's never been done before on a national scale, and we are considering testing it out in our community. And aside from that, my brother's a police officer, and I've spoken to some other officers about their experience with tent encampments and what they see. And I know, you guys are well aware about the policing and self-regulation, and they found that typically, because, there's a zero tolerance policy as far as, drugs and alcohol are concerned, the people who have these problems, which is, that's a whole nother issue, they will just leave off campus or off of the encampment, and they'll go to the closest site that's available to them, that's, not somebody's driveway or whatever, and it will be that school, and they'll do their drugs there. And just some food for thought. My daughter did a city-sponsored walking field trip today to clean up the creek, and in 15 minutes, they found 2 hypodermic needles and like 3 condoms, and it's in the creek. And having that be the place where people can just go and enjoy their time is really a grave concern.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Marks. Nicolette LaFranchi, followed by Peter Cherneff.
Hello, thank you for having this meeting. This is a question more for the, human health and services with probation and the No Place Like Home initiative that you're going to take. With these housing services for the mentally ill, I know that there must be standards that they must abide by to be eligible for the housing, but as you know, there is a large addiction problem with the mentally ill. So is there a way to allow them to stay in the housing while addressing their addiction problems? And if that's something that they can coordinate with probation as well? Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. LaFranchi, we don't do it back and forth during this period of time, but we may be able to answer some questions after the public comment.
Okay, thank you.
Peter Cherneff, followed by Dorothy Freiberg.
Oh, what a wonderful crowd. Good evening. Back in the 90s, I was on the streets and I started a homeless mentor program with 2 homeless Navy vets. And the idea was to place them somewhere, make a deal with the hotels that are half empty, something. But the big deal was they would be doing a minimum of 20 hours a week, doing something beneficial to the city, like gardens or taking care of senior homes and cleaning things up. Simple things that we could all utilize. Yeah, and then Martin Luther King said he saw the promised land, which means technically we're all homeless. And he said if one man's wrongfully incarcerated, so are we all, so we're all in prison. And the boss carpenter said, as you do unto the least of me, which is the animals, you do unto me and yourselves, which explains our hapless mental illness that is so deep that you can't even acknowledge it. But maybe we're just waiting around for Jerry Brown's $2 billion to kick in for the mentally homeless and to get their train tickets to FEMA camps, because that's already begun. Let's see. Oh, but for those that are homeless, like all of us, better still, this bitter pill, sign up today for the Homeless to the Promised Land Jamboree. On June 9th, we're going to shut down the West Coast for the prophetic 40-day strike. It is going to happen. And I'll finish by saying that in this room, there's such quiet, such stillness. In this room, truly filled with mental illness. In this world that forever having sought to heist the power, the truth, and authority of Christ, Serving two masters, de-escalating all disasters. June 9th, I'm here to report, begins the prophetic strike at the Oakland port. Ceasing the realm of mammon, so too Sataniel's backgammon, as we economically freeze frame the entire West Coast till all DC's corruptions be dispatched as burnt toast, opening doors to the promised land for the true hearted are the warriors, and the time be at hand. And I have some information here regarding that, so thank you very much,
Thank you.
Mayor.
Dorothy Freiberg, followed by Pamela Marks.
Good evening. Thank you for this. This is the second homeless summit I've been to, and I don't really see a lot coming out of them. Myself, I have been homeless off and on for 40 years. I raised my son on dirt. It took him 20 years, but he just graduated from Cal Poly, and he got a job in Santa Rosa for $55,000 starting salary. Go, Luke. Okay, one of our favorite sons, Jack London, was a homeless man in Oakland, California. He hung out in the library and wrote. And so, don't throw us all away. These are just kind of scattered thoughts. It is not okay to bulldoze homeless encampments. It is not okay. The people have a right to be secure in their homes, their families, and their persons and their possessions. And it's not okay to take that stuff away from people. I had a raccoon raid me, and only thing he could find to eat was the wax of the hearing aid ear, whatever these are. But I patched them together for this hearing. Okay, I want to thank the YWCA for housing abused women, families, the Redwood Gospel Mission for their massive work, and the Salvation Army for George's living room, or whatever drop-in center. Already?
Already.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Freiberg.
And
Pamela Marks.
no more meetings. Get working.
Is Pamela Marks here? Cecile Kerubin.
I want to thank everybody who's here too. I am currently a proud resident of Santa Rosa and of Sonoma County. I came from New York City, where I lived most of my life. And in fact, I was a renter there. And so one of the reasons I got involved was because I'm still a renter. I saved my money other ways. But now, as I'm aging, it's scaring me a little bit about where I'm going to end up. So I decided I'd do something about it. I'm a CAB member of the city of Santa Rosa. I'm on the Housing for All. I'm the chair. And I also am part of a project called Homeless Talk. And I'm on the steering committee. And we held a series of 19 conversations about homelessness. And I hear people saying, like, stop talking. We've done all this talking. But I think it needs to happen all the time. And I think as a CAB member, I'll just tell you some of the themes that we're seeing because we're doing our report. And at any one time, there were 2 to 6 steering committee members. So we operated on self-funding. And some of the themes that we're hearing tonight are the themes that we're seeing, like the stigma and the biases and beliefs around homelessness that are just not true, but we don't have the proper information about it. Systemic issues that cause it. Other models. We heard a lot of people talking about other models that happen, things that happen in other cities. Mental illness and addiction, and we talked to a lot of people who are grappling with that. And we have a lot of solutions that came out of it. And some of them are maybe just ideas that will spark other people to think of better ideas. So I guess what I'm here to say is that we need to keep talking all the time, and I guess I'll stop. But we would like to present our report at some time to the collaborative group right here.
Thank you, Cecile. Thomas Els, followed by Cynthia Rowe.
Well, first I want to say thank you for having this event. This is an interesting thing. And thank you for everyone for staying. This is a ray of hope, and I want to offer back and reflect that hope. Supervisor Shirley Zane yesterday called for inclusionary zoning. This is a new thing. And in respect to the general plan update, the county is the lead agency for the general plan, like as for an EIR, under CEQA. It's a very important role. Under that, currently the ABAG requirements for the 2015-2023 affordable component for the county is only 940 homes. For that 8-year period, they're only supposed to do approximately 940 homes, and it was previously 6,000 homes. So most of the housing in the future is going to be in the cities. That's just what we've done with the open space and everything. ABAG's 2040 requirement is approximately 33,000 homes for the county. This is going to require coordination of the general plan and requires significant coordination of the cities. But this requires the city to ask, because they're not going to come and tell you because of jurisdictional aspects. They could, they should. It's definitely required under the CEQA aspects of the general plan aspect. We need to coordinate this with the JC. I've said this community is a college town. Our housing and rents are significantly impacted by students. We need to have a study of that impact. How many students are living in houses not of their families? With inclusionary zoning, we need housing which satisfies the state's planning code to provide housing for every economic demographic in the community. And that, so instead of 20% or something like that, we need a little bit more. So this is not that difficult for a few houses, small numbers of the hundreds and thousands, but the tens of thousands of 33,000, that's going to not be that easy to do. But it's easy to do affordable housing for small numbers.
Thank you, Thomas. Cynthia Rowe, followed by Josh Silvers.
Hello, my name is Cynthia Rowe. I am a resident of the Southwest community, and I would like to talk about the CHAP program. I understand that that is a program for the future encampments that the council would like to place around the county. And before you put this into place, I would hope that you would look at some of the issues that could arise from this program. One would be affecting the property owners. The second one is the residents. And the third are the homeless that we are trying to help in the first place. In reading the CHAP program, I understand that there are certain things that the property owner is responsible for, and that is the hours of operation for that facility. Another thing that the property owners are responsible for is loitering, what to do if loitering should occur. I have reached out on a number of occasions to the facility that is looking in my neighborhood to put one of the pilot encampments in, and I have never received a response as to how they are going to deal with the issues. As a resident and listening to the homeless people up here speaking, we have the same concerns. They want to be kept in a safe environment. As a resident and a homeowner, I want to be in a safe environment. So I would hope that the council and the county, when you put out these programs, that you would have a single person in charge of the CHAP program who the property owners are accountable to, so that if there is an issue, that somebody in charge of the CHAP program can say, you're not adhering to the rules and regulations that we have, as well as making sure that the CHAP program is not across the street from schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Josh Silvers, followed by Celeste Austin.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having this forum. I really appreciate it. I'm a small business owner in Railroad Square. I've been there since 1999, and honestly, I've never seen it as bad as it is. And Chris, you and I talked about the numbers went down, but in our area, we have a lot of homeless services, but I've never seen camps under the, like actual tents under the freeways. And the police, bless their heart, they're trying. I mean, I know that I talk to them, and they amazingly won't go out there until they make sure they secure services to offer to the people. The last time when I talked to them, they went out there, there was 22 people in there. 4 of them were not eligible for services for having had issues, because people have issues, I understand that. But so that left 18 people, and out of all that, 6 people wanted services, and they had 10 beds. So I love the fact that we spend a fortune trying to get all this together, but it's not working. I mean, I would encourage to think about the program at the Palms. I think is an amazing program. I donated a bunch of stuff there. It's a county, city, state, federal, all got together and really did something wonderful out there. I don't know if encampments are the thing, but something like that really seemed to work out well. And I would just also say that the encampments under the freeways, as a business owner, it's really difficult for us. I got young girls who, have to go out and they get hassled, and it's really an issue. I know there's not a lot you can do, because it's a multifaceted solution. I know the police are really trying, I know you guys are trying, and there's a lot of issues to go with it, but programs that actually put people in rooms seem to be helpful. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Celeste Austin.
Good evening. Last night, the Living Room program was invited to the Human Rights Commission, and we presented there for the commissioners and talked about our program, as well as housing as a basic right and a basic need for all. Other basic needs and survival needs that you've heard, individuals who are living with this challenge of being homeless, of some of the things that are just necessary to survive. I applaud everyone who is here at 10 minutes to 7 who is concerned and working on this issue. It's multifaceted, it's complicated, there are many moving parts, and as a service provider, I get to do service and work with people directly to try to make a small difference in their lives. The Living Room program, our executive director was here, our president of the board was here, because we want to show up and let you know that we do care and that we're doing things to ease the adversity of homelessness. Whenever we can collaborate, it's always, I think, useful and helpful, because we need each and every one of us to come together at different tables and to talk about solutions that are going to be beneficial to the individuals who are experiencing homelessness, as well as to members of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Austin. Xavier Nazario.
Good evening. I am on the Community Advisory Board for the City of Santa Rosa, and I felt compelled to speak up today, and I want to thank everyone who hung in there to the very end. The first thing I would like to make is just a recommendation. I'd love to see some public comment at the beginning of these meetings instead of the very end. We had a lot of interested people here that wanted to speak, and I think they for whatever reasons, had to leave before they had an opportunity to speak. The one idea, I don't have all the answers. I wish I did. But the one solution that I have, and I've mentioned it before, is every day I walk. I'm the director of University of San Francisco Santa Rosa campus, and I walk down Mendocino, I walk down College Avenue, and I pass these huge houses with one or two people working in them, whether they're law firms or other services, tax accountants, and they're these massive pieces of property with just a couple people working in them. And I'd love to see an initiative where we get those people into the vacant businesses that are in our business core and move families or subdivide those properties into homes to make it more affordable for people to live here. I'd like to leave with that comment. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all the speaker cards I have. Council, are there any questions or comments at this point? Okay. So a couple of things have been mentioned tonight that I hope that we as a council can agree to pursue in the coming meetings. And I'd like to ask the council, first of all, to support me in inviting the Board of Supervisors at some point. I don't know whether it's the next meeting or a future meeting, but at the Board of Supervisors to join us around this table or another table that may be bigger than this. Can we agree on that? I see nodding heads. Thank you.
Do you need a motion or?
I don't think so. Yep. But thanks for asking. So I appreciate a lot of the comments that we've heard tonight, and obviously, you know, there are a lot of various interests. Some of those are competing interests. Some of those are seeking the same outcome but have different ways of getting there. It is a multifaceted problem that's going to take multifaceted solutions, and I think I heard both of those phrases used tonight. We obviously have a ways to go. We haven't solved this problem. I'm not sure that there's a community that has, but we are working hard on it. And with that, I'm going to ask for some suggestions for next steps and what our next meeting ought to be. I think that what I would encourage both of our staffs to do is to think about that question about how can we better collaborate, what do we need to do to that we're not already doing to create that collaboration. How can elected officials facilitate that, and whether that's coming together as elected officials or getting out of the way. I'm not sure what the answer is there, but I would like to have some feedback from the staff at the next meeting on those issues, and I'm open to suggestions on what else we can be talking about at that point. What are some reasonable goals? Yes, Mr. Rogers.
I'm not sure if at that meeting or at a subsequent meeting, but from the comments that I've heard from the public both tonight and prior, I think that it would be prudent for the council to have a conversation explicitly outlining what exactly is happening with encampments, what are the rules or regulations that are out there right now, what a potential future direction is there, and give some clarity both to the misconceptions and the proper understanding of what is happening with encampments around the city. And I'm not sure if what the county is doing as well could be beneficial for us to listen to that as well.
Ms. Combs.
Thank you. I'm open to any conversation that talks about how it is that we come together and work together as municipalities, and how we effectively use the resources we have without duplication of services, how we make sure that the funding stream is going where we need it to go. I'm a strong advocate of the Housing First model, as I know my colleagues are. And I am really looking forward to how we do that with attention to the low barrier shelter concerns. You know, what are we doing for people who have partners, property, and it was 3 Ps: possessions, partners, and property, for making sure that those folks have available shelter sites. So how we come together around doing Housing First like Housing First is intended. I also have some concerns about how we're doing maintenance of persons who are homeless until they can be sheltered. And that may be the encampment conversation, but we clearly have maintenance issues with people who are not yet sheltered and for whom a bed is not yet available. And the list that I heard as people were talking were bathrooms, storage, charging a phone, and a safe place to sleep until there's a shelter bed available or something available. So how we're going to do that, whether, again, it's CHAP or something else, I think we need to have that conversation. I have some concern about some legal issues. You know, I've been looking at Boise, I've been looking at Jones, I've been looking at a number of the legal issues around homelessness. I think that we need to inform the community as well regarding some of the legal issues. So I think it would be helpful to have some conversation around the legal issues. And again, we're, as a city, coming up on our funding cycle. I am hesitant to delay moving forward until after our funding cycle is over. So I'm looking for how we can piggyback some of the programs that we're funding on with the county, how we can get some of our RFPs out in time to get the funding that we need for a variety of programs, for many of our not-for-profits, done in time to include them in the current year's funding cycle.
Thank you.
That's my list.
Mr. Schwedel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mine's more, I was hoping for some more information, and it might be what was discussed prior to me getting to this meeting, but the shortfall in the ESG funding, do we have a dollar figure for that? I thought the gap is not 782,000 like the presentation. Mr. City Manager from Director Gwine.
That is the number.
For the city of Santa Rosa, we need to come up with 782,000 to cover the shortfall
No,
of ESG.
not for the city specifically.
So that's what I would like to know. Let me know what that figure is. How big is the net that we have to crack? And if we don't, what are the consequences to the services that we are currently providing? So that'd be one. The second one, I brought this one up to the expansion of a shelter capacity. What's that dollar figure, and how do we make sure that it's a housing-focused shelter, including what are the costs for housing navigators and for diversion programs? Those are some concrete things that we say, if we want this, there's this price tag attached to it. And regarding No Place Like Home, I would like to know, okay, for the city of Santa Rosa, if we're looking for shovel-ready projects, and I'm looking towards you, Mike, just presenting, what can we do as electeds? Do we need to locate projects? What can we actively do versus being said, you know, I have no idea what other issues are being looked at that we could potentially be doing right now. If I heard December of 2017, it'll be a little bit more concrete. You know, I've gone to 2 of Senator McGuire's presentations on this, so I have the concept, but again, working together, specific concrete things, what can we do to help that effort? And the last one is the single resident occupancies, SROs, similar to the Palms, because I know that's one of our housing action plans. What can we specifically be doing now, council electeds, looking at other locations similar to the Palms to convert to SROs? Because I know it's on our housing action plan, but does our staff have enough resources? Are there things the electeds can be doing with our resources to try to identify those locations to get the funding towards permanent supportive housing?
Thank you for those ideas. Any other comments, questions? The subject of encampments has been brought up several times tonight, and We have no sanctioned encampments that I know of in the city of Santa Rosa. We do have 40-some unsanctioned encampments that have been identified. And the council's been talking about these, the community has been talking about these for quite a while. And I know that we are looking at dealing with some of those, and I'd like to ask staff to talk about what those plans are at this point.
So yes, Mayor, briefly, the intention of a strategic plan to address the health and well-being of those experiencing homelessness, as well as the neighborhood that the unsanctioned encampments reside, is a program where we're trying to model what we do with currently with the SMART rail line and with the creeks and waterways. And that is in cooperation with the Homeless Outreach Service Team host, Santa Rosa Police Department, other professionals, is to actively engage those in those locations that we've identified as encampments that have 10 or more. We think there's at least 13 of those in the city of Santa Rosa. And invite folks into service. The skill set is a diversion specialist. It's a person on the Catholic Charities staff that has a very intimate conversation with the person who is experiencing homelessness. Might we reconnect them to their support network? Is that a family? Is that a friend? Is that even a friend who has a vacant couch? Might we provide them with a hotel voucher just to secure them, get them used to perhaps enjoying a space around them and intensively engage them during that period of time? And then as well as the consideration of expanding our shelter network, of the notion we have as staff is, City Council and counties currently support a 50-bed winter shelter. We could consider making that a year-round shelter and look at how we staff it and ramp up for a housing first engagement tool there. And then address the health and safety issues, the fire risk if there's high weeds, if there's sanitation issues, things of that nature. And so of the 13 encampments we've identified that have 10 or more residents currently, we're looking at addressing the first two, which the highest risk was on the spreadsheet we shared with the council. And that is the Farmers Lane extension and the underpasses of the 101 freeway. So that's a very brief overview of the pilot program we're suggesting we take some initial steps with.
Thank you. Any questions on that, Council? Ms. Combs.
I just wondered if you could clarify the document that we got said secure the location, and then it mentioned, as you have just mentioned, sanitation, health, fire safety issues. What is the proposed plan for how you're going to do those things? If you could just clarify, what do those things mean?
The secure the location means to address the fire and health risk. And so, for example, the Farmers Lane extension, it's been a very wet winter. The grasses are very high. They'll be turning brown soon. We just heard from speakers tonight, and we've observed ourselves that folks are, making campfires up there. They have propane cooking, and so addressing the fire hazard by abating weeds, clearing some brush up to 6 feet, for example, that would be an example of secure.
Thank you. And for the sanitation issues?
Right. So we've invited our partners to do an environmental health risk, and so depending on that risk, we would work with them to determine how we address that, whether it's removing trash, debris, things of that nature.
So all of this,
if I may?
Sure.
We want to address all of those also. We have been notified of some of the serious safety concerns, again, both for the residents and for the surrounding neighborhood. And so we do have liability concerns, and so we do want to move forward to address some of those critical safety concerns.
Is the plan to remove people and is the plan to provide safe temporary shelter at that location? Or is the plan to, I mean, I heard something about a hotel voucher, but previously we've had the number at that location down to 7. So how are you planning, if the plan is to remove people, what is the plan to enforce what the limit on the number of people who can be there is?
So again, we're going through a pilot program. Some of this is going to be discovered as we go through. The Farmers Lane extension, as was mentioned by the city attorney, has a whole slew of liability issues for the city, including the location and the safety of folks crossing to get to that location. Our desire would no longer to see that particular space occupied by anybody. But again, we weren't in a strategic process around that last year. We got down to 7, and all of a sudden the population went up. So again, I think what our approach is the housing first model, but there are significant issues to that site that continue, and especially the location, and that's why it rose to the top when we were looking at the vulnerability index for the folks in the location as well as to the surrounding community.
Is there a plan to find a city location that is an acceptable camping location while folks wait for housing?
As the mayor said, that currently there is not sanctioned encampment. There is not an attempt to pursue encampment areas in the city.
I heard you say there wasn't one, and then I heard you say there's not an interest or an intent to pursue?
That is against city ordinance as it stands right now, and then, you know, you obviously have asked for that conversation to move forward, but currently we would be then condoning breaking that particular ordinance. So if council wants to take action at a future meeting to give a different direction to staff, that's a different conversation. But right now, staff is not in the business of breaking ordinances without that direction.
Without council guidance. So one of the things I'd like to add to our future conversation list is recognizing an opportunity site, so that if we have to relocate people because it's an unsafe setting, and we don't have, and there's an and we don't have beds for people to go to, that we have a place where we can direct people.
And I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the idea here is to offer an alternative to people living in these unsanctioned encampments. And those alternatives would range from, as Mr. Gwine said, a friend's couch, to shelter beds at Sam Jones that have been expanded to a year-round basis. You know, all of this is being done with the idea of the housing first model, but we're also talking about some serious shortfalls financially at the same time. So obviously we have challenges ahead, but in addition to talking, we are taking some steps here to try and address the issues that we have in the community. And I appreciate that effort. One thing I am concerned about, though, is the financial issues that we're facing, and those are going to come up before we're able to meet here again. So the council is going to be needing to deal with that in the coming weeks. The Board of Supervisors is too. So I want to talk about a next meeting, and we've actually got a date that the council has agreed on that we all figured we could do, which is July 31st. That's after our budget process, and a lot will happen between now and then. I really appreciate the participation of county staff here, and I hope that you will be here again the next time we meet. I don't want to do that just to meet, though. If we need an interim meeting between now and when we get together with the Board of Supervisors, let's have that meeting. If we don't, let's not. You know, the next meeting could be with the Board of Supervisors. I'm going to ask the staffs, plural, to get together and figure out whether one or the other of those is the best way to proceed. And if the council has any better ideas, I'm open to suggestions. All right. With that, thank you, everyone, again, and we'll see you soon.